Yo, what's up, everybody? We are back with the with another episode of Simple Songwriting. This is going to be the last episode I do for this album, Sanctuary by Evanescence. I'm your host, Saint Aria, and so at this point, I've covered 4 songs from this album. This will be the 5th. I've done Afterlife, Rapture, Sanctuary, Who Will You Follow, and then today we're doing Tell Me When You've Had Enough. I want to apologize if you listened to last week's episode. I did say I was going to do How Do I Heal. I really like How Do I Heal. I do think it's a really good song, one of my favorites from the album. But as I was taking notes for it, I kind of felt like it just wasn't, I don't know. I just found that there wasn't as much to talk about as I felt like there should have been, or as I would have liked to. I'm not criticizing the song necessarily. I just think it's kind of to me, it comes off as just a very sweet song. It's a very, pleasant, kind of nice song. I did look up and see that she wrote it about her time in New York City, and her missing that place. And I think that's just cool. And so, yeah, I have nothing but compliments and love for that song. But like I said, I was going through it and it just wasn't, I just wasn't feeling like psyched to talk about it for a whole episode. So I was, I'll just be honest. I was looking out, seeing, well, what songs, what's like popping from the album. This song's doing really well on the streaming, and I've mentioned in a few of my other episodes for this album that the first 3 songs really threw me for a loop when I started listening to the album. I really didn't enjoy the first 3 songs, and Rapture was the song that kind of brought me back into the album. Rapture is a fantastic song. I did an episode on it last week. Go listen to that. Go listen to that breakdown because it was a really great. That's just a really good song. So yeah, I figured this might be a good way to cap the album off. Because now at this point that'll be 2 songs that I liked, which were Afterlife and Rapture. 1 song that I was kind of in the middle on, which was Sanctuary, and we'll have 2 songs that I didn't like, which were Who Will You Follow and this one, Tell Me When You've Had Enough. So, spoiler alert. I'm not a super huge fan of this song. I think that this song is like, I think that where Who Will You Follow just had some really messy shit in it, this song is like, I think it's bad in a different way. I think that this is like super bland. This is like right off the hard rock, sorry, one second. This is like right off the hard rock assembly line, like right off the line. It's just feels very sludgy to me, very like rock slop. That's just my overall take before we get into the breakdown. I'll talk about it all throughout. But yeah, I just think I thought that might be an interesting, something that I could talk about a little bit. Might be a little more of an engaging topic than How Do I Heal. Again, love How Do I Heal. Go listen to it. And I think maybe to cap this off, I'll talk about what I think about the album overall at the end of the episode, but to maybe cap this off, I do think that the album overall was kind of a bit of a mixed bag. And so by covering this song and having, 2 that I don't like, 2 that I like, and 1 that I was kind of in the middle on, I think it felt a little more even, a little more like, I don't know, a better summary of my thoughts on the album, because I do think that the album is more good than bad, I will definitely say, but it's definitely not like a masterpiece in my mind. It's a solid album with some really great songs on it. Again, I think Afterlife, Rapture, and How Do I Heal especially, those are like my top 3. I think those are fantastic songs, and I've complimented them immensely in the prior episodes. But this album does have some problems, and I think that I think doing 1 more where I don't like it. So I know some of y'all, I know passionate Evanescence fans, y'all are gonna be in the comments, but I do think it's worth at least talking about a song that I don't like, another song that I don't like, and maybe diving into that a little bit. But I think I don't like this song for different reasons than Who Will You Follow. So we'll get to it. All right. We'll have fun. It's going to be fun. All right. Maybe. Let's get started. Let's get started with the start. Here we go with the main riff.
For
Okay, so we start off with like a 3 count on the snare, which is actually a triplet that kind of matches up with the end of the riff. So if you listen to the tail end of the riff, it does like a dum. Yeah, here. Sorry. Hear that dun, which is a little bit of it's like a half note triplet, I think, over the metronome. So we start off with that triplet here. So it's a cool way to start the song. Totally fine. And then we get this riff. So this riff is slow. It's driving. I'll just be honest. It's a very unspectacular riff. It is very generic, just kind of run of the mill. This is a riff. This is what a guitar riff sounds like. There's no real twists or turns or anything that's particularly incredible about it. It's just and that's it. There's not too much to say about it. Then on top of that, there's like a high-pitched lead guitar, which sounds like it's harmonized, like it's got a harmonizer on it. Which again, it sounds cool, but that's like a very normal thing to do in most rock metal songs, is you just have this riff and then you have like an ambient lead in the middle to kind of fill out the space. Again, it's not bad per se. It's just kind of standard. It's just unspectacular. That's like the word that comes to mind. Even the drums are doing, they're just doing a standard 4 on the floor beat. But there is a little triplet at the end to match up with the riff, with the guitars. Kind of like I mean, just in general, when I first heard this, again, when I was listening through the album for the first time, I didn't enjoy Beautiful Lie. And then this riff came on and it sounded very stock to me, very bland. And I was like, oh man, okay, so we're getting this. And it doesn't help that as we get into the verse, which we can go ahead and just move on to the verse, the guitar's cut out, but the bass just kind of keeps playing the same thing. So it's like, I just kind of knew. I mean, immediately, I didn't know, but my initial impression, like first impression, was just immediately like, okay, this is just going to be one of these songs. Not a great way to start, if I'm being honest. Compare that to like Rapture, right? I mean, if you like, this is just awesome. Like off rip, like listen to all those little glitches, that piano chord change right there, immediately cool, immediately engaging. And then even the way that Amy comes in, really cool. You compare that to yep. We've heard it, and then it repeats the exact same. Yep, we've heard it, and then the verse comes in and the bass plays it. You see what I mean? It's just kind of like, there's not really too much to take from it. And I'm not trying to be overly dramatic with my head movements. I'm just, you ever have one of those weeks at work where it just whoops your ass? I kind of had one of those weeks. So I'm a little tired. I record these episodes on Friday evening, which maybe not the best idea. Maybe I should change it, but I like releasing them on Saturdays. If Saturdays feel like a good day to put them out. Anyway, that's enough meta commentary. Let's get into verse 1. I'm going to let the verse play out and then we'll talk about it. But yeah, in general though, kind of a mediocre start to the song. So the guitar's cut out, but the drums keep the same beat going and the bass keeps playing the same thing. The drums do start doing a little bit of additional hi-hat work. So here, let's pay attention to the hi-hat. See, they're actually doing like 16th notes on the hi-hat. Listen for that. It's really faint. It's very tough to hear, but it is happening there if you can hone in on it, you know. Yeah, the bass sounds really good. I would say that the bass tone overall is really great. It does sound like there's a low synth mixed in with the bass, but rather than the synth doing something different, it sounds like it's just following along with the bass. The bass, it just doesn't sound like it's only a bass guitar doing that. It sounds like there's some other layer happening there. Amy also comes in with the vocals, and you know, like I've always said, she sounds great. She's a great singer. But even the melody here just feels a little like, yeah, okay, this is just a regular melody. You know, it's like exactly the type of melody you would expect to be over a riff like this. It's just not blowing anyone's mind, and there's no harmonies or anything either. Again, I want to keep comparing this to Rapture, where I felt like Rapture was so awesome in so many ways. Like listen to these harmonies. You know, just like a little harmony like that can make such a huge impact. And yeah, you just don't get any harmonies on this one. And so anyway, what I'm saying is like so far at this stage of the song, and we haven't even started looking at the lyrics yet. We're just looking at the musical elements. The drums have been very normal. The riff is sort of bland, just a regular hard rock riff. The lead guitar was just a regular, you know, ambient lead. The most interesting thing I can say about it was it sounded like it had kind of a harmonizer on it, like something you'd get from like the Gojira plugin, like one of those crazy octave things, effects. And then the bass guitar just follows it. So there's no standout synth section either. It sounds like the synth is just matching up with the bass guitar on this verse. And so it's just right now from a purely, and then on top of that, Amy's melody is not like mind-bogglingly good or anything. It's just a decent melody. She's singing it well. Everyone's playing well, but you see my point where like, okay, none of this is really that gripping at this point. We're going to keep going, but already it's just kind of like, all right, fine. But let's see what she sings. 'Cause you know, if the lyrics and everything, if the story and the lyrics is engaging, it can make up for a lot. So she starts off with the word fall out, or two words, fall out. Kind of a cool line, honestly. I think that it could either be referencing like a nuclear fallout, which gives a whole lot of like that post-apocalyptic imagery. It's very cool. And then, but it could also, and war as well. Like it has a war-like imagery, the idea of a fallout because of the implication of a nuclear war. Or it could be like a fallout between, you know, two parties, right? Like me and my friend had a falling out type of deal. So it's a cool word to describe conflict. We don't know the nature of the conflict yet, but it sort of sets up immediately that there's been some type of a conflict. The next she says, fight all the way down. So again, kind of an interesting line, you know, that makes me think of like, you know, sugar, you're going down swinging. But for real though, it's like you're going down swinging, you know, you're fighting all the way down. And I think it also turns the prior line kind of into a visual metaphor, which is cool. So, you know, fall out being this phrase that has, you know, these metaphorical, or not necessarily metaphorical, but like these war and conflict implications. But then when she says fight all the way down, it kind of uses that word fall and gives that word fall a little bit of visual imagery too. So there is like a tie-in there, which I like. But yeah, the idea is maybe you're going down, but you're fighting as you go down, right? In the midst of this conflict. So we're off to a pretty solid start. So then she says, just the way they want you to. And her voice glitches out a little bit here. Let me see if I can find it. The way down. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Cool little effect. Yeah, so just the way they want you to. So we established the adversary. It kind of reminded me of like that, like DJ Khaled, that ambiguous, you know, they don't want you to succeed. They don't want you to improve your life. I got the keys to success. Anyway, just me being It was just something that I thought of, that ambiguous they. Rappers use it. Anyway, so that we do have a defined adversary though, but I did find this line to be a little bit confusing considering the prior line. So she says, fight all the way down just the way they want you to. I don't know. That doesn't quite make sense to me, because when you think about like a fight or a conflict, your adversary typically doesn't want you to fight the whole time going down. Like they kind of just want you to lose and be done with you, right? I mean, and you can just think about you fighting against somebody else. Would you want them to fight the whole time on the way down, or would you rather them just take the L and lose? Oh, there's my dog. I'm so sorry, y'all. I feel like I have gotten distracted like 4 times in this episode already. Like I said, it was just one of those weeks. Let's keep going. But I do have my dog in the back. And you know what? I think this is a good time to maybe make a note of this. I keep my door open so my dog can go in and out. He is not trapped in the room. I know that there may or may not be controversies about that. What the fuck am I talking about? Okay, let me just catch my breath, y'all. Jeez Louise. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't make sense to me that the adversary would want you to fight the whole way down. It doesn't make sense. To me, your adversary would just want you to lose and be done with you. That you don't want to keep fighting if you just want to win, right? So that seems a little confusing to me, but it's fine, I guess. I mean, by that token, the adversary wants you to fight all the way down. That's kind of what she's setting up here, you know, fight all the way down just the way they want you to. So we that's what she says. And so that's what we kind of have to run with. So then she says knocked down, which it's fine. It's a little bit redundant. I mean, we know that we're going down already, but whatever. And then she says burned out. So at this point, it's like, okay, we've lost, we're going down, but we're going down swinging, but we're feeling burnt out. Like maybe we don't want to keep fighting anymore. Yeah. So then she says, till there's, that's all fine. The knocked down, burned out, it's whatever. But then she says, till there's no room to feel like me. I think this is where we get like, this is where the song kind of took a bit of a turn for me, where I'm like, okay, so this is not like a real fight. We're now talking about like a metaphorical or like an emotional fight, which is fine. That's not necessarily bad, but it did sort of lower the stakes for me just a little bit. You know, even if you look at like if you look at Afterlife, right? One of my favorite things about that song was that it is like a life or death scenario. Like that fight, that conflict in Afterlife is life or death. And in fact, it's like the fact that it's life or death is established really early on. And then they talk about whether or not, like she spends the rest of the song kind of contemplating it, whether or not she wants to die for it. The Afterlife in general was about, you know, okay, I have somebody who I need to eliminate, but I will be eliminated in the process. You know, what is that? What are the implications of that, right? Like, am I okay with that? Is that a path that I want to go down? All of that, right? And so there's like heavy stakes to it, both morally and philosophically, but also literally and in terms of your life. So I like that. I like when the song has some stakes to it. This, where it's like, I'm burned out till there's no room to feel like me. To me, I think that this just kind of comes off as a little bit flat. It lands a little flat. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that an emotional or mental conflict is not like, it can't be a very meaningful and deep conflict. I mean, it's like Linkin Park's whole discography, right? And the Linkin Park kicks ass. So it's like, I'm not saying that that's necessarily it's not necessarily a hit, but it is like the way that the song was being set up to begin with, I felt like it was going to be a bit more of an aggressive song. And all I'm saying, maybe let me summarize. Let me try to consolidate what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it changed the stakes of the song for me. I thought, okay, this is like a fight. This is like we're fist to face, you know? And now it's like, okay, hold up. This is actually like an emotional or like an internal song. Whether it's good or bad, we can get to later, but that's what I mean when I say the stakes got lowered, is like, not necessarily that the stakes were lowered. They did in terms of like, it's not life or death anymore, but now we're talking about a different thing than I initially thought based on the lyrics as I was listening to them the first time. That's what I mean. Yeah, so then we go into the pre-chorus, and so let's just talk about the pre-chorus lyrics, and then I'll talk about the music. I don't think there were too many changes with the music anyway. But yeah, so in the pre-chorus, let me play the pre-chorus, and then we can get into it. So that's our pre-chorus. I think it's worth noting that we don't get another pre-chorus in this song. And something I want to point out is like, well, let's just talk about it. So she says the enemy. So this comes immediately after the verse. So she says, till there's no room to feel like me, the enemy. So she's framing herself as the enemy, which is how her enemies would view her as an enemy, right? So this makes sense. But then she says, but what if I'm not the enemy? And I just, honestly, this is just a very weak line. I don't really understand the purpose of it. Who here thinks that she's not the enemy? Like, is she appealing to the audience? Because we, the audience, would not, since we're getting her point of view, and this is our introduction to the conflict and to the story, and because we're presumably Evanescence fans, like, we wouldn't have any reason to think that she's the enemy in this conflict. So then it kind of begs the question, is she appealing to the adversaries that she's in conflict with? Which, I don't know, that doesn't seem to really do much, because she never, I mean, spoiler alert, but she never appeals to them again. In fact, she does not seem interested at all in reconciling with the adversaries throughout this song. So this line is just a little confusing to me. It seems a little redundant, and it just doesn't seem to do much. Like, it doesn't establish any sort of a motivation. It doesn't build out the themes. It doesn't even really expand on the conflict. It's like, yeah, we know there's a conflict. We know that someone views you as the enemy. We don't view you as the enemy. You don't view yourself as the enemy. So what is the point of this line? And so that's where I think this is a good place to step back and maybe view the lyrics a little more holistically. To me, these lyrics are kind of, I talked about this on Sanctuary, but this is like that. This is a little, not as bad as Sanctuary, but this is just a little bit of that like millennial cringe young adult novel writing, where it's like, I want to be the edgy resistance fighter that's like, morally ambiguous or gray or whatever, and like I'm the hardcore resistance fighter, but I'm also completely morally righteous and like good in every way. It's like having your cake and eating it too. It's like, I'm the enemy, but what if I'm not the enemy? I'm actually right. It's like, okay, all right. Like that's kind of what I get from this line. So overall, in summary, for all of these lyrics at this point, we've got an ambiguous conflict. The only real motivation for our adversaries, or like explanation of the conflict, is that line, fight all the way down. Most of these lines just sort of repeat the idea that you're going down, you've been fighting and you're going down and you're feeling burned out in some way. And then the implication is that you don't feel like yourself anymore. And I don't know. I just, and then the pre-chorus to me is sort of, I think it minimizes the conflict a little bit, and then, or at best, and then it's just like completely meaningless at worst. The enemy, what if I'm not the enemy? Like those lyrics do nothing for the song in general. So yeah, I like, overall, to just summarize, we don't know who we're fighting. We don't know why we're fighting. We don't really understand what the theme is yet, aside from like, okay, I've been knocked down, but I need to get up. But she doesn't even really say that, right? Like, I feel like, you know, when she says, till there's no room to feel like me, and then the pre-chorus could talk about, so I've got to get up, I've got to still fight, I've got to do something. But like, that's what I mean by the pre-chorus just being sort of meaningless, and not really adding anything to the theme, building the theme out for the song. So yeah, we kind of just have like an ambiguous conflict, and that's it. And that's all we can really take from it. Not very good so far. Not super compelling lyrics at this stage. Of course, we'll just have to see where it goes. But yeah, it's not, definitely a little bit of a step down from some of the other songs that we've seen. But you know, we're still just getting started. So let's see where it goes. Oh, sorry, I need to talk about the music in the pre-chorus. Yeah, everything else is generally the same. I think the bass and drums even literally keep playing the same part, but they do bring in a single guitar track in the middle, which then glitches out and goes to the left and right speakers. Like it pans left and right, which is kind of cool. So listen to the guitar here. Hear that? One more time. I skipped it. Yeah, so even that guitar riff though, it's the same riff, right? So it's not even like we're getting some new guitar part. So we've already heard the riff. And yeah, Amy's melody here again when she sings the enemy, but what if I'm not the enemy? It's totally fine, but it's just not like mind-boggling stuff. Everything cuts out, and then we get into the chorus. So let's play the chorus now. Okay, so chorus, everything slams in, kind of a staple on this album. They do this on a couple songs, but I remember when I was first listening to it, it just didn't quite hit as hard as some of the other songs. And I think it's because the music leading up to the chorus was kind of standard and stock. And so when everything slams in on the chorus, like that is kind of a normal thing to do in music. Like the chorus is sort of meant to be like the high point. I'm sorry, hold on. The chorus is kind of meant to be a bit of a high point of the song. So it like, that's very normal for everything to slam in. But because of the way that it was built up, both lyrically and then with the music being just kind of not that great leading up to it, it just didn't make as much of an impact as it should. And again, compare that to like Rapture, where they, you know, it was awesome. Here, let's see. Like that just slams in. Like that is such an awesome way to come in with a chorus, especially with them bringing everything out and then building back up to it, but bringing it out for the whole pre-chorus, like letting that whole pre-chorus in Rapture sit on its own. And like for a few seconds, like I think it's about 10 seconds of nothing but like ambient synth, and then like Amy way in the background. It just lends itself to this really awesome like slam in. Whereas with this song, it just, they cut things out for like a split second, which again, very normal thing to do. This is not the right song. It just feels very normal. Yeah. The guitars are playing kind of these normal chords. The synth is playing like a little bit of an arpeggio thing in the background, very high pitched, but the mix is so bloated and overwhelmed that you can't really hear it. It's a common complaint that I've had on this album. Try to listen for it. I think it's the notes it's playing are like, actually, you know what? I don't even need to do that. We can just go and listen to it here because it plays here. We're going to go a little bit later in the song. You can hear it right here. What am I doing? No, no. You hear that? Dun, 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 dun. So that's playing in the chorus, but it's damn near inaudible. Yeah, but it's there, and so I'm just bringing it up. The most interesting thing here instrumentally is the drums. The drums are kind of playing a funky beat, like they got the snare in some weird spots. Yeah, like it's like do do ba do ba do do ba do do ba. I think that's the beat. Do do ba do do ba do ba do do ba. Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting beat to put over this chorus. Again, nothing crazy, but it is a little bit unusual. It's a little bit out of the norm for a drum beat, so that's cool. Honestly, the drums have been great on this whole album. I like love talking about them. They're like the standout thing on a lot of songs. Honestly, the drums, you should listen to the drums a little bit more, because I think I don't know whether the drums are like pre-programmed or not, which is very possible that they are. They still put in a lot of work to make them like their own, you know, to make it seem like it was composed and written by someone who actually gives a shit, right? So we always like that. And that's something that's really unique to rock and metal, I think, is that you get like an entire person dedicated just to the rhythm section, just to the drums and the percussion. I hate listening to like rap with Drake or something where it's just the same thing for 3 minutes. You listen to the first 30 seconds of the song, you've heard the whole thing. You listen to the first 15 seconds of the song, you've heard everything. It's the worst. We do seem to be getting away from that minimalist bullshit from the past decade, though, which I'm so happy about. So we're getting some cool instrumentation, even in like pop world, you know, with Sabrina Carpenter and Billie Eilish and all that. Anyway, total tangent. But Amy sounds good as always here, but the melody again is kind of standard. Not really mind-boggling. I do think the way that she says, "Tell me when you've had enough" at the end kicks ass. Let's listen for that. Yeah, just very cool. I mean, she's just great. She sounds great on everything that she does. But let's take a look at the lyrics. Let's see what she's actually saying. So she says, "Where's the line? Where's the line?" So this is actually a really cool line, no pun intended. The implication is, where do you draw the line in terms of your moral standards? Like what you think is morally acceptable or not. That's what that means. I want to talk about it more in just a moment. So she says, "Where's the line? Where's the line?" So that's obviously like, where's your line in the sand? And then she says, "Somewhere under the blood." Very cool line as well. The implication is that metaphorical line in the sand is being blurred by the conflict or the violence in some way, and it's becoming difficult to find. I think that is a really interesting concept and a really great way to portray that concept. The idea that like we all have our moral standards, but when push comes to shove, sometimes it's hard to stick to those standards or notice that those like it's hard to even remember what those standards are, right? Because it's one thing to, when everything's good, for you to say, "Oh, I would never do that," or "This person would never do that to me," or whatever, right? But then when it happens, or when you're put in a scenario that you weren't expecting, it's always an interesting thing to see what happens when people, what happens to that line in the sand that you had, right? And I think that's what she's describing here. And I think she describes it really well and very quickly and concisely with some unique word choices and phrasing. So I like that. Yeah, where's the line? Somewhere under the blood. It's like that word "somewhere" does a lot of heavy lifting there, but in a good way, you know? It's a very cool word to use. And it's kind of like an underrated word, right? Like, where's the line? Somewhere. Like, it's like, well, shit, it's kind of a problem. Shouldn't you know where? But yeah, so then the next line after that is, "Say you won't change your mind," which is a natural conclusion. Amy is basically imploring the listener, hey, like, don't let go of your moral standards. Don't forget where they are. Don't step away or back down from them. Remember that you have your standards. Remember that you do have a line in the sand, you know? Very cool. And then she says, as they break everything you love, as they break everything you love, tell me when you've had enough. So this, as they break everything you love line, I actually think is really cool too, because it could either, it has two functions. It could either act as a continuation from the line, say you won't change your mind. So it's like, say you won't change your mind as they break everything you love, right? So like, even though they're breaking all the stuff you like, you know, don't change your standards, don't walk back, you know, don't do that. But then also you could say, it could be a lead in to tell me when you've had enough, where you could say, as they break everything you love, tell me when you've had enough. So it kind of, it's cool. It like fits really nicely between the prior line and the subsequent line. So I really like that. Yeah. And just in general, but with that said though, I do think the line is cool in where it's placed and the function it serves. I do have to note, I think that the word choices here are just a little bit kind of meh. Like, as they break everything you love, it's very, and this is kind of the problem that I have with this song, and I'll talk about it a little bit more as we get further in, but it's so ambiguous what that could mean specifically, like break everything you love. It's like, it's so ambiguous, but not in like a good way. It's meant to, like, obviously, and this is what I mean, where like this song is like factory made to be like a radio single. It's all very ambiguous. Like pop stars do this all the time, where they make the lyrics very ambiguous, that like they have a clear thing that they're talking about, but then they keep it so ambiguous that you could kind of like apply it to whatever you want to apply it to. You know, it's like saying, like when a pop star will say something like, you know, when you left that night, I didn't know what to do. Like, obviously, okay, we've had a breakup in the relationship, right? I'm going to go with that. We're going to use that as like an example. Like, when you left that night, I didn't know what to do. We're going to use those as an example. It's like, obviously there's a breakup, but who's at fault? We don't know. Maybe he left because she's at fault. Maybe he left because he was at fault and she called him out on it. Like every dynamic that you could think of in terms of like a relationship that's maybe hitting a rough patch. Maybe did they break up, or did he just walk out, or did he leave out of anger or frustration, or he just go for a drive to calm down, or was she being violent? Was she out of control and he needed to leave the scenario? Who knows, right? There's a million different ways that you can interpret that scenario, and that's kind of why pop stars do it. And I feel like that's kind of what she's doing with this line. Now, I'm not saying she's like a pop star. She's better than them. But that's the vibe that I get, where it's like, okay, how can I say, you know, don't change your mind as they blank, without actually saying anything that they're doing specifically, and without like, while making it still kind of ambiguous enough that everyone can relate to it. And so, yeah, does that make sense? It's just kind of like that, like, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of lines like this. They feel just a little like sludgy to me. Like, okay, like I said, we got to make it super ambiguous so that there's no clarity on it. But I understand what it's doing, and it's doing it well. I just don't, I'm specifically talking about the word choices, by the way, like break what you love. What is, like, what does that mean specifically? That's kind of what I'm pointing out, is that it could basically mean anything, you know, like it could be somebody, you know, breaking you could, you know, breaking up your family, breaking your relationship, you know, causing problems within the society or the culture, or just destroying the things. Like maybe they're throwing a temper tantrum and destroying all of your stuff. You see what I mean? Is that making sense? I'm not saying it's like the worst line ever. In fact, now that we're at the end of this chorus, I actually think this is a pretty good chorus. It's a pretty solid chorus overall. way better than the verse. I just think that one line, it's a little iffy for me. But anyway, regardless, yeah, this chorus and the idea that it's sort of espousing is really cool. And the idea is basically, where is your line in the sand, and what do you do when someone crosses it? When do you, what do you do? And then, do you even know when someone crosses it? And what are you, can you recognize that? And that's the name of the song, right? Tell me when you've had enough. It's like, okay, at what point does this person cross over your boundaries or your line in the sand, and you say, that's it? And then what do you do when that's it? So I think that there's a cool theme here. This is actually, like, honestly, this is like a really, really good theme. This is a very profound theme, something that you could talk about. This is like the basis for a lot of great songs and stories and artwork in general, is like, what happens when you're pushed too far? What happens when you have a moral boundary and it gets crossed? A lot of people, because a lot of people just let it happen. They don't say anything back, or they don't fight for what they believe in. And, but some people fight hard. They fight real hard, right? And so, yeah, it's a very good theme. And I think that she has portrayed it well here in the chorus. So maybe I don't want to get ahead of myself. At this stage, I think that this is cool. I do want to note, I don't think this theme was set up at all in the verse. Now, I know that I get it. There's a conflict, etc. But like, obviously there's a conflict, but we don't have like, who is this adversary? Why are they trampling over your lines? What is your connection to them? How long has this been going on? Like, and even that, like, the enemy, but what if I'm not the enemy? Is this like a gaslighting scenario where they've made you be okay with them crossing over your boundaries? That's probably the closest I could think. But again, it feels like the first verse was very basic and honestly a little all over the place. And I mean, don't even get me started. Like, and I'm not even bringing up like fight the way down just the way they want you to. I mean, to me, that's like a toxic relationship line. So that's where I'm like, okay, are we talking about a toxic relationship here? I mean, that's like very applicable, I guess. But this is where I get frustrated with the ambiguity of it all. It's like, I know that there's political implications to this whole album. Are you talking about politics here? Are you talking about a toxic relationship? Or are you talking about, like something else? Is there some other thing? This is kind of the issue with keeping everything so damn ambiguous, is that it's like, it could kind of just be anything, right? And so even though the theme is good, it's a good, compelling theme, that first verse didn't really give us a lot of context for what leads us to this theme. It's just like, yeah, you're fighting and you're burnt out, but how much of this are you going to take? It's like, okay, sure. So yeah, again, torn on this song, really torn at this point with the lyrics. But here's the thing, it was only the first verse, and we did set up that there was a conflict, so we just got to see where it goes. So yeah, let's just keep going. Sorry, hold on one second. Bring it back. Yeah, so we just get a repeat of the main riff. There's no real change aside from her saying, "Tell me when you've had enough." And then she does add a harmony over it the second time she says it. And the harmony sounds really good. I think that's like a fourth or a fifth harmony, which those harmonies always sound so cool. They sound very powerful. And I didn't mention all of the music cuts out for a split second and then kind of like warps back in, or like slides back in. Listen for that, like, dun dum dum. Yeah, that's just kind of a cool effect. I do think that is like that's a strong effect. So anyway, But that's about it. Now, going into the verse 2, she does say the line, never mind the chemicals, leading into the verse. I'm not going to talk about that here. I'm going to talk about that with the verse 2 lyrics. Cool. So there is the verse, second verse. So this is generally the same as the first verse. The only difference is that there's a few extra sound effects, like glitchy, synthy sound effects that come in that do sound pretty cool. They're very cool sounding. Let's see if I can find one or two of them here. Like that, you hear that like sound. Excuse my sound effects. That right there. Let me play it one more time. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and then we get the guitar that comes in as well. About halfway through, just like this glitchy guitar. Sounds cool. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, that's all fine. Amy does change the melody right at the tail end of the chorus, or of the verse, leading into the chorus, right? 'Cause there's nothing left to. And there's a low harmony on that as well. So that's like the first harmony that we've gotten in the verses. There isn't a second, so that's all the changes basically. The music is essentially the same as the first verse. There isn't a pre-chorus, a second pre-chorus. This does speed the song along, but I just want to note again, I think that when you do something like that, where you have a pre-chorus, you have like the first pre-chorus and then you take it away in later sections, that's a really good opportunity to use that pre-chorus as a storytelling or like something as a plot device, a storytelling section, something. I think Rapture did this perfectly. Like, and I even made a clip out of it where I talked about how the pre-chorus in Rapture is like the most important part of that song, and you probably don't even know it, is because it kind of is. Like, that is the moment where Amy sees the light, so to speak, right? And if you don't, it's honestly kind of hard to understand what she says on that pre-chorus. Here, let me play it real quick. This whole thing right here. So this is only pre-chorus on Rapture. Like, so she says, what does she say? Hold on. Let me get it right. It's Rapture, Evanescence lyrics. Hold on, I just want to make sure I've got it right. Sorry, y'all. Give me just 1 second. It's coming up. Computer's just going slow. I alone, that's the line I was forgetting. I alone will this divine my holy calling. Super cool lyrics. Super cool, yeah, really cool lines. And anyway, the point I'm getting at is like Rapture did it perfectly, where they made that first pre-chorus like extremely important to the story and the plot of the song. I talked about this, a ton in my breakdown of that song. Go listen to it. On this song, I feel like the pre-chorus was kind of a wasted opportunity. She just talks about like being the enemy, but maybe she's not the enemy. Okay. So I don't know. It's just it's a little bit of a disappointing thing to see. Regardless, let's see what she says on this verse. So she starts off with, never mind the chemicals. Sorry, hold on. I'm getting back to where I was. Okay, sorry. So she starts this verse off with the line, never mind the chemicals. Now, this is a weird line. Like, honestly, this line is very strange. And I was I actually was a little confused by it. Like, what does this even mean? Never mind the chemicals. Now, my first thought was, well, this is kind of, this song seems to be in the same vein of like that resistance narrative type thing from Sanctuary. So I kind of was thinking this is like tear gas. Like maybe she's talking about tear gas in the midst of a fight, that, you know, something like that, right? Because there is a fight going on. There is a conflict. She mentions a fallout. Fallout is the first line. So that was my first thought, was like, is she talking about tear gas? But then the next line is breathe in, breathe out. It's all a lie. So that doesn't really make sense. Tear gas doesn't make sense with that. So I kind of had to reevaluate it, and I was like, well, what does that mean, right? And I think it was the next line where she says, choose your own reality, where I started to piece it together a little bit. And I was like, okay, I like retroactively went back and I'm like, this now feels more like what she was talking about on Who Will You Follow, where she's talking about, you know, specifically with the lies and choosing your own reality and things like that. Like, she used those words on Who Will You Follow to describe like the media, social media, cell phone addiction, things like that, and how we, you know, we can break away from that. We don't have to be owned by those things, so to speak. And so now this is my current interpretation. I think when she says never mind the chemicals, I actually think she's talking about like dopamine or serotonin or something, or on the more negative end, like cortisol, right? Like, she's saying, you know, don't worry about the like chemical crap that's like this. These things are manipulating your biochemistry, and so then that's why she says breathe in, breathe out. It's all a lie, right? Like, you know, never mind the chemicals. Basically, she's cortisol maxing. she's a looks maxer. She's saying, don't stress yourself out. It's all lies anyway. That's kind of funny. There's the clip right there. Amy Lee looks maxer. Anyway, that's what but again, it's kind of a weird line, and that's the best guess. That's my best guess. If you think I'm wrong or that I'm totally off, let me know. But I think she's talking about like the dopamine and serotonin overdoses that we get when we just doom scroll on social media, right? And yeah, as well as like the cortisol and like stress, like it stresses us the hell out. Social media is almost designed to stress us out. It's designed to like red alert, you know, be addictive. It's funny, since my YouTube channel has gotten just a little bit more subscribers and I've had a couple videos where people are actually commenting more often. Yeah, I get that notification thing. I'm not on much social media. I have like a private Instagram account and I don't really do shit on it. So and I'm not on Twitter or X as it's called. So I stay away from a lot of that stuff as much as I can. It's not good for you. I actually agree with Amy here. But yeah, I've gotten into the habit of checking my YouTube channel notifications, because yeah, that little red bell, it's addicting, right? So breathe in, breathe out. It's all lies. It's all bullshit. Yeah. So that's what I'm going with. So she says, choose your own reality. I get what she's saying when she says this line. So never mind the chemicals, breathe in, breathe out. It's all a lie. Choose your own reality. I understand what she's saying here, and I think it's actually a pretty good message. It's like you get to decide, you know, you get to control your life, basically. Like, you get to control what you bring into your life. I'll just be honest though, I think it's just a little bit of a crappy line from a lyrical perspective. I appreciate it from a thematic perspective, but it's like, choose your own reality. It's just, she kind of did this on Sanctuary when she said like years and years and ages and eons. It's like this really overly hyperbolic language that I think actually ends up undermining the message just a little bit rather than enhancing it. You know, I think something like Take Back Your Life might be a little more pertinent and less, again, like, choose your own reality. The reason why that bugs me is because reality isn't something that you can choose. Reality just is what it is. You're not choosing your own reality when you decide not to participate in like social media addiction or something like that, right? You're simply, you know, you're just deciding how you want to live your life, basically taking back your life. You know, does that make sense? That distinction? It's a very small distinction, but that's just what I mean when I say like, I don't, she's using this hyperbolic language, and I get what she's going for, or at least I think I do, but it's kind of having the opposite effect for me. Anyway, I think I've made my point, but yeah, reality is what it is. You just kind of get to choose how you interact with reality. I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So the next line is, one day there'll be no more sacrifice. One day there will be no more sacrifice. I didn't say that right. Yeah. So obviously it's like, well, and then she says, because there's nothing left to lose. So she's saying like, look, there won't be anything left to sacrifice because there's nothing left to lose. It's fine. Like these two lines in particular, they just feel very on the nose. Like these are very like common phrases, like there'll be no more to you won't. One day there will be nothing left because there's nothing left, right? We've heard this before. These aren't like mind-boggling lyrics. In fact, I would even say that they're a bit obvious, right? If you don't fight for what you believe in, there won't be anything to fight for. Right. And we've already established that there is someone who is breaking everything you love. That's what as she said. So it's like, yeah, if you just let someone break all the things you love, eventually you won't have the things you love anymore. Right. That's why I do this podcast, because I love rock and metal and I'm tired of watching people break it. But yeah, I mean, that's what it is, right? If you don't fight for what you believe in, if you don't stick up for yourself, draw your line in the sand, stick to your morals, stick to your standards, then yeah, eventually it gets eroded away. And in this case, by the blood, right? By the violence and the blood, you can't even find your line in the sand anymore. So it's very important. So again, thematically, I like what she's saying. And I like the chorus. I like the idea here. I don't know if I think these are just like, I don't think these are particularly compelling lyrics for it. I feel like we've got this really awesome, deep theme about, morality and moral standards and virtue and things like that. And fighting back and holding the line, so to speak. And it's just, she chose like the most generic lines, right? One day there will be nothing left to lose. It's like, makes me think of like a Saturday morning cartoon or something, So yeah, overall, so overall with this verse, we kind of have gone all over the place. So I think the Nevermind the Chemicals, again, my best interpretation, which I could be wrong about, let me know if you have something else, but the best interpretation that I have is that Nevermind the Chemicals is talking about like the dopamine, serotonin, and cortisol, like mental brain chemistry that comes from the chaotic world that we live in, right? Which again, and then she says, breathe in, breathe out, it's all a lie, which even that's not even quite true. Something can cause a cortisol spike or stress you out and be 100% true, right? Like something you can be stressed out by something that's real and true that actually happened. So even that is like, but whatever. So we're talking about like, yeah, the world's chaotic. Just breathe in, breathe out. It's all a lie. Choose your reality, which I think is a man line. But then, take control. You can take control of your life. And then if you don't, if you don't do that, if you don't stand up for what you believe in, one day there will be nothing left. I think that these lines are so ambiguous that you can tie a through line. You can tie them together, but I actually don't think that they really relate to each other. Like the first three lines and then the second two lines, never mind the chemicals, breathe in, breathe out, choose your own reality. Like that all seems like they belong on Who Will You Follow. Whereas these next two lines, or the last two lines, one day there'll be no more sacrifice because there's nothing left to lose, seem more in line with the theme on this song. I don't know. To me, it just feels like this is a little bit of it feels very crammed in. And it's probably because, and I mentioned this on Who Will You Follow, it's probably because they don't really have a huge climax or any like real substantive lyrics in the bridge of this song. So again, they're trying to cram in the whole story and the theme and the conclusion to the conflict right here in these two verses. And so it just comes off as a little bit messy. It's like, yeah, you just got to fight for what you believe in because one day there won't be anything left. And that's that. So you got to do it. And it's like, okay. I hope I don't know. To me, it just seems very generic, very standard, not really too much to think about. And again, it's all so ambiguous and nebulous that it's like I can't say that you can't take anything from it. It's that it's so nebulous that it's what am I trying to say here? It's like spoon feeding it to you, basically. Like there's nothing really here that has, I don't know. I'm not trying to like sugarcoat it, but I'm not trying to be a hater either, but something's just off about this, and I'm not quite able to like phrase it correctly. This is one of the things that I like about these episodes, by the way, about doing this. I do believe, like, I have my ideas about songs and the way that I view them. Where am I going with this? I'm sorry, y'all. This is not a good episode for me. Shit. What a mess. Yeah, I don't know. I just think they're generic. If you disagree, leave a comment, please. I just think these lines are super generic, and I'm not with it. Let's just move on. I feel like I'm out of it, y'all. I'm just a little bit out of it. Sometimes it's tough doing these episodes. Just yapping. I've been yapping for an hour, just talking to myself. You know, and this is a good time to say, please subscribe. I know this isn't the best place for me to ask you to subscribe, but the reason is I would love to be able to do this live. That's like the ideal version of the show. I would love to be able to have a stream, but because then I can bounce ideas off of you guys and we can discuss it. Because I don't think I'm crazy. Let me be clear on that, actually. I don't think that I'm crazy here. I think that these lyrics are pretty bland and very obvious. But this is like the problem with that ambiguity, is that it's so mushy. It's so like mushy and ambiguous that it's almost hard to criticize too. It's like punching mashed potatoes or something, right? It's like, what do you do with that? Like, it's like mashed potatoes. You're not doing anything. You can't do anything with it. So it's like, it doesn't, like the lyrics aren't really expanding any of the conflict. It doesn't give us any indication on the adversary, why they are trampling over you, how you ended up in this position to begin with. Why aren't you fighting back? Why aren't you, what's kept you from fighting back up to this point? And again, I don't even know, based on these lyrics, what kind of conflict this is. This just as easily could be like a political uprising. Like, she could be talking about the Russian-Ukrainian war, or she could be talking about breaking up with her ex-boyfriend or something, or like, I know she's married, but like, you get what I mean? Like a generic relationship song. And it's like, that's not good. That's not a benefit to your song, that the conflict is so ambiguous that you actually can't tell what this is about. Does that make sense? Is that maybe making more sense? It's like, I don't know what to say about it because I don't actually even know what the nature of the conflict is, which is very frustrating. It's a very frustrating place to be, because then it's like, what are you criticizing? She is talking about the conflict. Well, what is the conflict? What is she talking? Is she talking about Trump? Is she talking about politics? Is she talking about some ambiguous war somewhere? Resistance, freedom fighters? What is it? And that's kind of the issue. And what are we? Why aren't you fighting back? What's the hesitation? Is it because you have a gaslighting ex-boyfriend, or a gaslighting boyfriend, or abusive boyfriend? Is it because of, I don't know, you're afraid of blowback on Twitter or something? I don't know. It's so ambiguous. But then she's saying like, oh, never mind, just breathe in, breathe out. It's all a lie. Well, you see what I'm saying? It's so ambiguous. It's so mushy and like lacking of substance that it's almost hard to even criticize. All I can criticize is that there's nothing really to talk about with it. At least when I was talking about Sanctuary, which was a song that I actually thought was good in some respects, I can say, okay, this is like cringy millennial resistance narratives, but at least I know that it's specifically about Trump and it's like a resistance narrative song. Like, it's about politics. At least that's something, but this song, no, it's just, there's just nothing. There's nothing to really grip onto, which sucks, because as we get into the next section, well, we come right back into the chorus, and the chorus here is great. Like I think the theme is a good theme, and it just feels like they're just not doing anything with it. But I'll talk about that more in a second. Sorry, this verse has just totally derailed me. It's just gotten me like a little bit like with Rapture. With Rapture, there was so many interesting things to think about in terms of like, you know, like people who are too afraid to face up or own up to their bad actions, right? And what does that mean for them to like have to face up to the consequences of their actions? Because that's what the rapture is, right? The good people go to heaven, the bad people are left on earth, hell on earth, basically. And that implication of like these liars who lie to themselves and they lie to everyone else and they sell out their soul for greed and money. Like, okay, we know what we're talking about there. We're not talking about an ex-boyfriend. We're not talking about a relationship. We're talking about these people who sell their souls and then can't even look themselves in the mirror, right? And can't own up to it. And like from there we can have a interesting discussion about, because then Amy also in Rapture talks about herself and maybe how she underwent a change in Rapture, which is what I was talking about with that pre-chorus earlier. And so you can have like these plot threads and you can tie together. And I mentioned how like the first verse sets up parallel storylines of Amy who owns up to her mistakes and actually has this like holy revelation. And then this third party who doesn't own up to their mistakes and sort of like, ends up left on earth in the course of the rapture, like hell on earth, and they are forced to face up to it. And you can follow these parallel storylines and talk about how they intersect with each other and how they interact, and then ultimately culminate at the end of the song or in the climax where Amy says, because of you, I learned what not to do. You taught, so tell the truth just like you taught me to, meaning I learned to tell the truth by watching you lie. And that's such a cool, like, there's stuff that you could say about that. Like that was built up throughout the whole song. And with this song, it's just like, and I mean, I can even just spoil it. I mean, the lyrical climax of this song was, was there ever a line? This is the moment of truth. This is our time, which is just, I mean, that is just as bland as it gets. This is our time. Again, Saturday morning cartoon shit. So it's like, I think this verse, sorry, I just need to move on from this verse because it's like breaking me. But what I'm saying is that it's like, there's just nothing. It's so like, it's like frustrating to even try to criticize because it's so ambiguous that any criticism that's levied at it, it's like, and this is what I mean by slop, right? It's one thing for a song to be bad, and then it's another thing for a song to be like factory made hard rock slop, where it's so just like mushy and empty of any real substance that it's like, you can't really critique it, So anyway, I got to move on. We got to move on. We'll got to keep it going. I think I've been talking about this verse for like 20 minutes. I hope I got my point across. Anyway, we get the chorus. It's the exact same as before, so we can just move on to the next section, which is the breakdown. Comes in right here. Tell me when you've had enough. Tell me when you've had enough. All right, cool. So the breakdown is kind of like an altered version of the main riff. It's like they took the main riff, which is, mainly like quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes, and then kind of turned it into triplets, like these long dum 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 dum. So listen to the breakdown. And now listen to the main riff. Dum 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 versus dum 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 dum. You see what I mean? It's just this isn't bad. This is actually like a normal thing to do, where you take some of the similar like note choices that you were using throughout the song and then just expand on them a little bit. But yeah, overall though, I do think that this breakdown comes off as just a little bit lackluster, especially when you compare it to like Rapture, for instance, but especially like, or even like Who Will You Follow, where they did a time signature change to 7/8, which was pretty cool breakdown. Who Will You Follow? This breakdown just feels a little bit lackluster. I will say halfway through, they do bring in these really cool, like this cool choir effect. Everything cuts out for a second and they get a choir effect that comes in. Hear that? Ooh. Yeah, and again, it's like, that is a cool effect, that choir coming in. Here, right here. You hear that? That's cool, but I just don't think that it's quite enough to save it, unfortunately. I mean, for comparison, again, this is Rapture. It's like, that's sick. And I mean, even Who Will You Follow? You know, it's like, for all my criticisms of Who Will You Follow, that's still a better breakdown than this. So you see what I mean? It's not like a terrible breakdown, but like pretty much everything in the song is just kind of bland. Yeah, I think that this would be fine in most circumstances, but this really is kind of like the climax of the song, and it just doesn't feel particularly satisfying. The most like, and again, given the nature of the story that we have, from what we can extrapolate from it, this would be the moment where our character or our person would be standing up for themselves, you know, drawing the line in the sand, and like, or maybe redrawing the line in the sand and then making the decision to stick to it. But it just doesn't really feel like that. It doesn't feel like it has that grit, you know, the same way where like Rapture, that dubstep thing felt like the end of the world, right? Yeah, it just doesn't quite hit the same. So, but that's really about it. And we can go on to the next. So we just go to the next section. So everything cuts out, and then we, except for like that bell synth, which we played, which plays in the chorus. And this is basically just the chorus, just like very stripped down. It does sound like there's a guitar layered in there, but it's really tough to hear. And it could be a synth. It's kind of the thing with like, we have like these distorted synths now that basically can just sound exactly like guitars. I'm like 80% sure that there's a really low volume guitar buried in there, but mainly there's just a bunch of synths as well. And then the synths build up to this final chorus here at the end. Which that might be a guitar with a high pass filter on it, or a low pass filter. And then at the end, everything cuts out for a second, but there is like a cool, like distorted squeal sound, like feedback or something. You hear that? So yeah, but in general, again, it's very mushy, very like, there's nothing to really pick out from it, like not a specific section to pick out. It's just kind of ambient noises building up to the final chorus. On the lyrical end, this gets us, you know, this is technically the lyrical climax. So she says, where's the line again, which is just repeated from the chorus. And then she says, was there ever a line? And this could go one of two ways, I think. one, either she's asking the listener if they ever, so she says, was there ever a line? So she's either asking the listener if they ever had a line. Like, did you ever have a moral standard at all? Or she's questioning if the adversaries in the song ever had a line themselves. Like maybe you had the line, but maybe they didn't. And so they were always willing to cross it because to them it didn't exist. It's fine, I guess. I don't know. It comes off as a little bit of a line because it's asking the listener to determine. Well, here's the thing. The lyrics "where's the line" asks the listener to determine their moral standard. That's why "where's the line" is important, because you're saying, hey, where is your line? When you say, was there ever a line? It's like, it feels like a bit of a step back. Like the whole point is like, where do you draw your line? And then what do you do when someone crosses it? To then question, well, did you even have a line to begin with? Is like, well, yeah, obviously we had a line. Everyone has a line. I mean, you could say that the adversaries don't and that they're willing to cross it, but that's not really the implication that I get from this. I mean, she could be saying, again, maybe she's saying that. Maybe that's an interpretation, right? Like the adversaries don't care about your lines in the sand, and so they're more than happy to cross it. But to me, it's not, this song was never about whether or not a line exists. It's about where is it and what do you do when it's crossed. That's what it was about. We already know that the adversary is crossing it. Does that make sense? So if the implication here is like the adversaries don't care about the line, well, that doesn't really add anything because we know that they're already crossing it. She established that in the first chorus. And then if the implication is, her questioning the listener, hey, listener, did you ever have a line? It's like, well, I mean, that was already sort of implied by the line, where's the line? In the first chorus, right? You see what I'm saying? It feels like, okay, again, we have this great theme of like moral standards and you're drawing your line in the sand. And then what do you do when someone crosses it? And then she's saying, did we ever have a line to begin with? It's like, yes, we did. And they're crossing it. They're breaking all of the stuff we love. They are crossing it right now. Of course there's a line. That's not the question, You see what I'm saying? So it doesn't quite make sense to me. That line. And then she follows. So yeah, what the lyric, was there ever a line, doesn't make sense to me. And then she says, this is the moment of truth. This is our time, which is like, I'm not even going to talk about that. That is just terrible. That's like super cringe, like amateur hour lyrics. This is the moment of truth. This is our time. Like I'm not even going to talk about it. That's cringe. So that's all the lyrics though, essentially. I mean, I think in the last chorus, she says, crush every dream into dust, which is just kind of it's saying what we've already know. So in general though, this is like the climax, was there ever a line? This is the moment of truth. This is our time. So let's talk about these lyrics holistically. I think that the theme is great. And I do think that the chorus is great. Lyrically, I think that we've got a great topic here. Unfortunately, I think that she completely dropped the ball in the verses and the bridge. I don't think that I think that she barely scratched the surface of this very powerful theme of like setting your standards and like sticking your ground in the face of people who are more than happy to trample over your standards. I think that she just barely scratched the surface of it in a way that's deeply unsatisfying to me. It felt like, the phrases are so generic, lines like, there's nothing left to lose. This is our time, just breathe in and breathe out. Like, what are we doing? And then the conflict itself being so ambiguous that we can't actually like, if she made this explicitly a political song, then we could talk about like, okay, what do you do when people in power are crossing your moral lines? What are your options? Do you collaborate with other people? Do you, write a note to your governor? What do you do then? There's something that you could talk about, that if it's an ex-boyfriend or a toxic relationship, abusive boyfriend or something, what do you do then if he's continually crossing your lines? Do you kick him out of the house? Do you leave the scenario? And honestly, that's very similar to what Going Under was about. And I did a breakdown of Going Under, where it's like this idea that you are just completely overwhelmed in this relationship. What do you do then? It's not bad. It's actually beneficial from a creative and artistic standpoint to have clarity and to have specificity, I think is the word. Specificity? Is that the fucking word? To be specific. It's actually good from a creative artistic standpoint to be a little bit specific with your conflict and the nature of the conflict, so that way you can use it to bring out specific examples of like how to of the application of your theme, right? The theme here being, what do you do when someone crosses your line? You can actually say what you can do. But she doesn't really do that here. She just continually says, well, you've got to fight. This is our time. But she doesn't even say fight, right? It's not even implied. It's just like, this is our time. Well, what does that mean? Anyway, so yeah, it's an issue. It's an issue that it's also ambiguous, that we don't know exactly the nature of the conflict, and therefore we can't actually flesh out the theme with specific examples and like actual like plot devices or conflicts in the case of the song, throughout the oh my god, I'm losing all my words, throughout the length of the song. Basically, like throughout the song, we should have had these multiple moments where we can have the conflict can be expanded upon, or we can go into a certain element of it, like on Afterlife, where the second verse actually has her directly address the adversary and make it clear to the adversary that, if we don't die now, then we'll forever be haunted by this conflict. And then she says that, and then she mentions like other people are relying on her. And that's actually a really important plot point in the second verse of Adversary, the idea that she's actually not just fighting for herself, but she's fighting for other people too, which then becomes very relevant in the climax, where we find out that she, even though technically she is doing something good and fighting for other people, her motivations for killing the adversary are not for other people. They're selfish. So it's like a little twist on like that idea, and it just gives a lot more weight to the idea that she is, eliminating her adversary and herself out of pure revenge. We wouldn't have that, like, it gives that more of an impact, like the revenge element of it, personal vengeance, and the moral weight of that is given more substance by having verse 2 explain to us that there are other people involved in the conflict in that song. Do you see what I'm saying? So like that's like a little plot point that you can add in the song, which gives more weight to your climax. We didn't really get that here. There's like nothing to talk about. I mean, again, we go back to, I don't even want to talk about like verse 2. Verse 2 broke my ass in this video. I'm sorry if you listened to the whole thing. It was not great. But basically, yeah, it's just like choose your own reality. One day there will be no more sacrifice because there's nothing left to lose. Like, yeah, duh, no shit. Like, we already know that. So why, like, what does this do for our conflict? Whereas she could have been saying like, rally together with the people you love, teach them to fight too. Or if it's your ex-boyfriend, leave the situation. If they try to follow you, what do you do then? I mean, there's so many angles that you could take in terms of the way that the story goes, but you can't take those angles if you don't establish the story. So I'm getting like more heated than I expected to. I think it's just because I'm like, I can't quite figure out, like, it's just tough. It's like trying to grab water, essentially. Yeah, I mean, and so again, I like, just to kind of wrap this all up so we can keep it moving. What I'm saying here is like these lyrics are just very basic. They're very bland. It's more of like, they're the bad guys and we're the good guys type of writing, and it's just cringy. It's kind of amateur hour. I mean, and like, she makes it super clear, like what it's funny what I just said about like that writing of like they're the bad guys, we're the good guys. She quite literally says in this song, but what if I'm not the enemy? Like, obviously you're not the enemy, Amy. None of us think that you're the enemy. We go into the song with the presumption that you're the good guy. Not every song is like that. There are definitely songs that are told from the point of view of like a the villain or the morally bad character, right? I mean, there's that movie Obsession that just came out where Bear is not really a particularly morally righteous dude. I don't think he's like pure evil the way that some people have talked about him. He's just a conflicted character. He's a real character. He's a conflicted character, right? He's definitely not morally righteous though, because of some of the decisions that he makes throughout that movie. So you can tell a story from the point of view of the villain, but in this case, on Evanescence's songs, I have no reason to think that she is the villain or the enemy in this song. So why are you telling me that you're not the enemy? Well, it's because this song was written with the mindset of they're the bad guys and we're the good guys and we fight for what's righteous, and that's that. And it's like, that's just, yeah, that to me, that's just like generic resistance song or generic songwriting, number 4037. We've heard it a million times. There's really not a whole lot to pull from this theme, even though the theme is good, which is very frustrating. It just feels like a wasted opportunity. There's such an interesting theme. What do you do when someone crosses your boundaries, and how do you deal with that? When do you stand up and fight for yourself? I mean, it's like every bully high school movie about like a bully ever, right? When does the nerd stand up and punch the bully? It's like such a good story. It's such a great basis for good art and good storytelling, and I just feel like the ball got completely dropped here, and not even dropped in a way that's bad, because it's not even like she wrote like bad lyrics. It just felt like the ball just sort of sat in the sun and melted. Like they just did nothing with it. Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much that's what I've got to say. I'm not trying to be overly harsh. I don't think that this band or this song is like super corpo. I know, as I've learned, like Evanescence is fully independent, and a lot of the songs on this album have so much creative energy in them, right? Even some of the ones that I haven't really talked about, like About Us and Calm Down and Self-Destruct. I haven't discussed those songs much, but even those songs are very like, have a lot of creative energy and oomph in them. And at this stage of the song, because I mean, really, we're basically done with the song. There's a chorus, and then the main riff, right? And it's just nothing that we haven't heard. There is a small chorus extension, which I guess let's just finish the song out, and that way I can talk about it holistically. So the third chorus has like a small extension at the end of it. I'm just gonna play it. And then we go back to the exact same chorus riff or main riff, and then she ends the song with a very cliche thing where you sing the line and then they cut off all the reverb and the song just ends on her dry vocal. Super, super cliche ending as well. So, okay, I just wanted to get through that so I could talk about the song holistically. So of all the songs I've covered on this album, this is the most generic. This is the most bland. It feels like it was like made in a factory specifically to be a radio hit single. It is just, it's very frustrating for me to talk about because there are songs on this album that are so creatively inspired that I'm just blown away that they would make something like this, especially considering that they don't have some like record label behind them, like pushing them to sacrifice their creativity. This song just feels so by the books and so bland that it doesn't make sense to me, honestly. I mean, I don't like Beautiful Lie, but even Beautiful Lie had moments on it, like the bass guitar in the verses is awesome. Listen to the bass guitar in the verse of Beautiful Lie. It sounds sick. So it's like even that song, which I don't like, had cool moments on it. Even Who Will You Follow, which I was very critical of, has a breakdown in 7/8 timing, which is super weird, super unconventional. So this song to me just sticks out like a sore thumb of like, what happened here? Like the riff, the main riff is the type of riff that maybe you jam out at one practice session and then go, yeah, it's just not quite good enough. And yet they like way over, I mean, they play it more than they needed to in this song. The whole song is, it's like basically the only instrumental part of this song, because even the breakdown is kind of based on the main riff essentially. So I'm just not sure what happened here. And I honestly find it kind of disappointing. This song isn't explicitly bad, but I almost kind of wish that it was, because at least that, you know, if a song is like explicitly just bad, that typically means that there was like a risk taken, like a creative risk that they took. But with this, it's, you know, the lab grown corporate rock, you know, thing, it's just like, there's just not much to say. And it's dissatisfying and honestly kind of disappointing to analyze, because especially because they did have a theme that was interesting. They just totally decided not to do anything interesting with it. And that is disappointing. It is a bummer. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough song to think about and to break down. And I mean, if you skip to this part, I was just like the second verse especially just really, it throws me for a loop, because I'm like, what are you talking about? Where is this going? You're missing out on so many opportunities to do cool things. So yeah, I'm not a fan. And again, when I was first listening through this album, this song in particular, I was like, what is going on here? You know, I thought Beautiful Lie was a pretty meager start to the album. This song, very disappointing, not what I was expecting. And then we got Who Will You Follow, which I already heard, but I had a lot of problems with Who Will You Follow. And I was honestly like, I was getting worried about the album. I was like, oh my God, is this what we're in for? And then luckily, thank God, I mean, Rapture came along and just like completely pulled me back in. Loved Rapture. And honestly, a lot of the songs on the album are great after the first three. But I want to, let's finish this song out, and then I'll talk a little bit about the album, because this is going to be the last breakdown I do for it. So let's just do my little template thing for this album, and then we'll close out. So the purpose of this song, unlike Rapture, which felt very creatively inspired, this song seems to be almost engineered to be like a radio single. And honestly, it does seem to be accomplishing that goal. I think it is like it's kind of the most popular song from the album that wasn't like a single. It's climbing up the charts. So people are liking it. I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is. The genre style is modern metal. The song structure is extremely basic, super, super basic. The only unique thing they do in terms of the song structure of this song is remove the second pre-chorus. So they just have one pre-chorus at the B after the first verse, and then they don't do a second pre-chorus. Hold on. From a compositional standpoint, the song is mainly the song for the most part is just unremarkable. The main riff is kind of boring. I think that the breakdown is extremely weak, especially compared to some of the awesome breakdowns we get in the other songs on this album. The drums, you know, they're fine, but they don't do anything particularly incredible. The synth is, well, there aren't even really any like notable synth sections here. It follows the bass guitar during the verse, and it's more just ambient stuff during the breakdown and the vocal bridge. So not too much to even say about the synth. And the bass, even though the bass sounds really cool, it's got a really nice bass tone. it basically just follows the guitar riff in the verse. Amy sounds great as always, but even on this song, her melodies seem kind of phoned in. They're just not particularly spectacular. I mean, there's just not much to say about it, you know, whereas, again, go back to my breakdown of Rapture. I think I talked about her verse melodies alone, just the melodies, not the lyrics, for like 5-10 minutes, because they were so awesome. Like, they were just amazing melodies on that song. And so, yeah, just compositionally speaking, it's just not a very compelling song. Regarding the mix, this is just, again, that bloated, fat fish Cervini mix, and I'm not a fan. It makes everything so muddy and blurry. You can't really hear anything. You can't hear the synths in the chorus. You can't really hear the cool hi-hat going in the verse. And as I've commented on other songs, it makes it washes away her vocal melodies, which are some of the best things that Amy Lee does, is her vocal harmonies. She is excellent at vocal harmonies, and wish I could hear them just a little bit better. Thematically speaking, this song is about, you know, having a moral standard and how much you're willing to take, or what happens when that moral standard is crossed. How much crossing will you accept before you decide to do something about it? It's a great theme, but from a lyrical perspective, all we really get is an ambiguous conflict with Amy just sort of telling the listener, you just got to fight for what you believe in, bro. And there's just not much else. We don't know what the nature of the conflict is. We don't know why they're trampling. We don't know how you're supposed to fight back. And I think that, you know, specifically that, you know, this is the moment of truth, this is our timeline, just sums it up really well, because that line is so generic that it's just like, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? You know? So, final verdict on this song. Unfortunately, I just don't think this song is very good. It's just right off the assembly line. Factory made to be a single. None of the elements are particularly compelling. I think the chorus is the best part from a lyrical standpoint. And I think that the theme, they had something and they just didn't do anything with it. I know that this album isn't like some corporate, you know, sludge, you know, product, considering that they are an independent band, but like, I just, that's what confuses me, right? Is that I don't know how they ended up making a song like this. So with all that said, so yeah, anyway, I don't really like this song in particular, but with all that said, I would like to just maybe talk about the album a little bit more to close this out. At this point, I've done 5 breakdowns. I did Afterlife, Sanctuary, Tell Me When You've Had Enough, Who Will You Follow, and Rapture. I think that these albums, or these songs, for the most part, cover my thoughts on the album. I didn't do breakdowns on the 2 ballads, but I think both ballads are very good. I think How Do I Heal and Forever Without You are solid ballads. But the spectrum here is I've got 2 songs that I liked, Rapture and Afterlife, 2 songs that I didn't like, Who Will You Follow and Tell Me When You've Had Enough, and then the title track, Sanctuary, which I thought was sort of a middling track. It had some good, had some bad. I think that that's about how I feel about this album. It's a mixed bag. There's a lot of, like, there's some high highs, but unfortunately there are, and I think that there's more good than bad, right? Let me talk about the good. I think from a good perspective, this album actually maintains a degree of thematic relevancy throughout. She talks about wanting the album to be a sanctuary for people in the midst of a chaotic world. I think that she actually captured that. All of the songs, to some extent, are about the crazy, chaotic world that we live in, and maybe coming to peace with that, or like, you know, what do you do with that, essentially? And I think that she did a pretty good job of staying on theme for the album, which is not something you see. A lot of artists just write fucking bullshit, whatever, and go all over the place with their albums. But she stuck to it. I think that there are some songs in this album that are excellent. And I've talked about them, right? Like Rapture and How Do I Heal and Afterlife. But I think that there are some songs that I haven't discussed that I think are very good too. I think that Calm Down is a really unique, very interesting song. That chorus is super cool. Somehow heavy and yet mellow at the same time. I think that Self-Destruct, really cool song, whole lot going on in that one. And even Wide Open Heart, I think, I don't think Wide Open Heart is like mind-boggling, but I talked about this on the last episode, but they do some cool stuff with the chord progressions in the chorus. And it's actually a very positive closing song for the album. It's like a peaceful closer, which I think again matches with that album theme of music being a sanctuary from the chaos of the world, right? So I appreciate the thematic consistency. I do think there was also a lot of diversity on this album, a lot of different songs, way more different types of songs than I was expecting from the album. So that they took some risks on a few of the songs. Some of them it paid off, some of them maybe not. Even like Sanctuary, I did not like the intro monologue for that title track, but I can acknowledge that it was a creative risk for them to do it. So yeah, now I think that kind of can segue into the things I don't like. I just mentioned creative risk. I think that this song in particular took no creative risks. I think that Tell Me When You've Had Enough is extremely generic and bland. Unfortunately, you can see pieces of this throughout other songs on the album as well. I think that there's a lot of lyrical cliches, a lot of kind of bland guitar work and bland production work, kind of permeating throughout. I think that the themes of the various songs can, sort of make it okay. But for example, like there wasn't like a single guitar solo that I thought, or like lead guitar part, or that I thought was just like mind boggling. I mean, and really, if I'm being honest, there wasn't much guitar work on this album in general that I thought was particularly like exceptional or like, oh my God, I've never heard something like that before. So it all comes, you see what, you know what I mean? So like, I think that there's just this general like, that probably could have been better. Maybe they should have spent a little more time on certain things. And especially like the first three songs, like, Beautiful Lie, I thought was just, she literally says, don't tell me what to do. I mean, what are we doing? Like the fact that that's how you want to open the album as well. I don't belong to you, so don't tell me what to do. Again, this is like, I would expect that from like Olivia Rodrigo. I would expect that from Taylor Swift or Sabrina Carpenter. I wouldn't expect that from, or I shouldn't expect that from a lyricist like Amy Lee, especially at this stage in her career and her life. It's just cringy. It doesn't work. It comes off as very, I don't know. It didn't work for me at all. Maybe it works for some of the girlies, but like, I'm not into it. So yeah, so anyway, a lot of lyrical problems throughout the album, but I think a lot of the songs cover up, or a lot of the songs it's okay because the themes are so strong, and the overall quality of the song is, makes up for it. But in general, yeah, I don't like to necessarily give numbers to the albums, but I would probably give this one, like, I'm leaning towards like a high 5, like a 5.5, maybe a 6. And I don't, to be clear, in my scale, I know everyone has this weird opinion that a 10 is like normal and a 7 is terrible, and then anything below a 7 doesn't exist. To me, a 5 is an average album. I think that this album is maybe slightly above average. I don't think it's amazing or excellent. That's where you get into your like 8s and 9s territory, and like a 7 or an 8 is like really good, and 9 or 10 is like masterpiece or close to masterpiece. This album feels above average. It's a strong album. there's good moments, but unfortunately there's not so great moments as well. So there we go. With all of that said, none of this is personal towards Amy Lee. I like Amy Lee a lot. I love seeing, I'm very happy that this album's reached #1. I hope that people are enjoying it and the fans are enjoying it. I love rock and metal music and I want to see it succeed. I would love for it to be bigger and more popular, but hey, you know, it is what it is. We got to take the steps where we can, right? We got to take the victories where we can. So I'm happy to see that this album seems to be doing very commercially successful. And I hope the fans are enjoying it, right? I'm happy that, you know, people are really liking it. And I'm all for good music, right? I want there to be better music. I care about music, especially rock and metal. I think rock and metal is just the best genre by far. And it just, I think it has the most potential, which is probably one of the reasons why songs like this, which feel so bland, piss me off so much. Because it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? How do you write Rapture and then write this? It doesn't make sense. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about this song anymore. I'm already done. My point is, happy for the fans. Hope y'all are enjoying it. Hope you enjoyed this series. I mean, I've been talking, you know, I do a breakdown a week. So I've been talking about this album for like a month and a half now. We're going to get a color scheme change. I can finally change my LEDs. I hope you enjoyed the videos. I know I went on a little bit of a couple tangents in this one, but like I said, it's, you know, I'm talking to myself for an hour and a half. Or really, I'm at an hour and 45 minutes now. So it's tough sometimes. I do my best. I try my best, y'all. Give me a little grace. But I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this breakdown or parts of this breakdown, go check out some of the other ones. Like I said, you know, if you're screaming at the TV about, or if you're screaming at your screen about how I was so critical of this song, go listen to my videos on Afterlife and Rapture. I was extremely complimentary of those songs. They are great songs, objectively. And if you want more rage bait, go listen to my breakdown of Who Will You Follow, because I was not very complimentary of that one. Yeah, so there we go. Anyway, check it out. As always, you know the normal stuff, like, subscribe, that bullshit. And I'll see you guys on the next one, okay? Thank you so much for watching. Peace.